So I'm live. Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here today. Usually I do talks around value stream management, product management, and data analytics. So the a talk in the career track is new to me, so a bit nervous. But if anything I go through today, if it resonates with at least one of you, and if it helps one of you, I think I've done my job here. Let me move forward. A quick introduction about me. As Brittany said, I'm Laksh Ranganathan. I help set up the product operations function within Tasktop and lead that function at the moment. I have a background in engineering and product. Been in the industry for 20 years. Feels like a lot right now. I'm speaking to you from UK. I live just outside of London. And my focus is in value stream management and analytics. If you would like to get in touch with me, my LinkedIn handle is out there. I once quit a job because I felt like I wasn't going anywhere. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy the work generally. I absolutely love the people that I work with, but something was missing in terms of opportunities, learning, and so forth. So I was on the edge, and what ended up happening was one senior leader happened to mention casually, "Oh, you're just going to go off on maternity leave in a couple of years. So what do you care about career growth?" And that basically was it for me. And I impulsively quit and took on the next opportunity that I got. But it was a very impulsive move. And the role I moved on to was not the best alignment for me. I think that was a bit of an eye-opener. And from that moment on, I decided if I ever move roles, it will be intentional. And a lot of what I'm about to speak today comes from that experience, to be able to make that decision an intentional decision as opposed to something that is impulsive. There have been a lot of reasons why I've moved on. Great opportunity came across when I didn't expect, wanted to have a career change. I wasn't happy in my role once, or felt that the growth was stagnated. And once I was just looking to see what was out there, and managed to find something that I moved to. But for every one of those opportunities that I took, I have not taken on opportunities because there were so many barriers to that, inertia being one of the biggest. And when you delve deep into it, it was things like I felt I was unprepared. I didn't have the confidence to try on that next role, the fear of unknown. Well, at the end of the day, change is hard. We're programmed to resist change as humans because it's risky, right? So that's natural. One thing about me is when I am faced with something that is scary, unknown, what I tend to do is I research what is it all about, understand what is the dynamics, get more information so it can help me de-risk the situation a little bit and possibly come up with strategies to handle with that. So that's sort of what I did with this situation as well. I'm in product development. I see everything with that product lens. So I applied a product lens to this as well. What do I mean by that? Okay, let's think about a product, right? When you're thinking about building a product, you think about what are the outcomes I'm looking for? Who's that persona I'm building to? How am I going to measure if the product is hitting the mark or not? Where am I right now and what may I invest in? So we improve the product for that particular persona, close that feedback loop to see where do we want to go? Where are we today? And how do we get there? Where are the gaps? And then keep inspecting and adapting and adjusting. Your career shouldn't be any different. You need to understand what are those outcomes that you wish to achieve and how are you going to measure progress on that? Where are you today? How are you investing in yourself and adding to that tool set so you can use that when an opportunity comes along, and reviewing your gaps and taking action and adjusting continually. Let's go a little deeper into each of those. Let's think outcomes. The way I looked at it was I looked at it across a few dimensions. I looked at it from values, objectives, key results, work, the role itself, and then the market segment and fit. I'll go into each of these a little bit. When I say values, I'm thinking about your core values. What are your core values? It's important because it determines alignment to your company's core values. Because let's face it, company values drive company culture. If there is a lack of alignment between your own core values and the company's values, that misalignment can lead to dissatisfaction. And if it is too much, if that misalignment is too much, it can go as far as burnout. So you need to keep an eye on it. Alignment doesn't guarantee that you're going to be absolutely satisfied in a role or in a company, but it de-risks dissatisfaction, and that's important to note. Let me give you an example. When I joined Tasktop, I did not think about values at all. But about a year into joining Tasktop, I joined Tasktop because the opportunity just came across and it seemed like a good fit, and I joined, and it was. A year into working at Tasktop, I was creating my list of core values, and as I was creating those, I realized every one of those seems to have a corresponding value within Tasktop. I have empathy and inclusion in my core values, and Tasktop has two core values actually: diversity in thought, unity in action, and care for each other's growth and happiness, which closely aligns to it. I have passion for excellence in my core values, and Tasktop has something around premium product and customer experience, which aligns very well. I have focus on long term, and Tasktop has vision to transform the industry, validated incrementally. So there was this very tight alignment, and as I thought about it, I realized why I love working at Tasktop and why it has been so great for me. It has fostered an environment where I have been able to grow. It's because there's a good alignment. So the basis is there, right? And when I thought about other roles where I have thrived and where I have sort of not been very happy, the values have played a role there to an extent. So it's good to think about it at least. And I will definitely keep that sort of at the back of the mind going forward for sure. So when you think about your core values, if you don't have those listed, take some time to do it because it'll be hugely valuable to you. There are lots of tools out there on the internet to try and come up with your core values. They start with this big list, and then you have to condense them to based on what you feel and sort of which ranks higher and lower and so forth. Try and come up, use those tools and try and come up with what you think are those top values for you. Stick to about 3 to 5 because I think that's what should drive what you're all about. It might take time, but trust me, it's totally worth it. And once you have that, review it periodically. Sometimes it might change, not drastically, very subtly. You might have something that was 6th on the list, and now it's a little bit more important to you than before. So I think it's good to keep an eye out for that. Once you have worked on core values, the next one is objectives, and this is probably the easiest. If you don't know where you're going and when you want to go, what are you going to put on Google Maps to create that chart or build that route to get there, right? So it's the same thing with your career. You need to know where you want to go and what time frame. It'll inform your decision making, and it'll help make sure that you're looking at the right roads where you want to go. When you think about objectives, think about it in a 2-year time frame. Think about the medium time frame. The reason for that is it's great to think about, oh, I want to be a CEO in 10 years, but that's quite far. And what you're looking at is where I am aligned to that sort of stretch goal that you have. So create something that is medium term. I like to say in the 2-year horizon. 2 to 4 years is probably as far as it gets. And one of my friends had her objective as, I want to move into pre-sales. She wanted to do have a career change. I want to move into pre-sales in a year in a software company, with opportunities to learn and grow. So that was the goal when she was looking for her role, and very clear, helped her channel her search in the right direction. If your objective is audacious, that's absolutely fine. And if you don't entirely know, that's okay too. But start with writing something down and keep working on it incrementally. You can refine it, but start with something, knowing that the clearer it is, the more focused you can be. Objectives are meaningless if you can't measure them. If you don't know how you're doing against them, then you're not going to get very far. So it's important to align your objectives with key results. OKR, get the get the drift. But the key results are important because metrics will help you figure out how you're doing and inform you when something needs to change and where it needs to change. Here are an example of what I picked as the metrics for myself. Your metrics are going to, your key results or metrics are going to be aligned to your objectives. So they're going to be related. So there is no one metric that rules them all. Pick something that is complex and time bound, about 3 to 5, so you can determine how you're doing across dimensions. And don't ignore compensation and happiness. Happiness is one of the early indicators when there are problems to come. So happiness, something that determines happiness, helps. I have something like a Monday morning test as one of my metrics. And compensation is important too, because you don't want to underplay compensation. After a certain level, compensation sometimes is not your only motivator, but it's good to keep an eye on it so you're not compromising to a point where it causes dissatisfaction. Especially when you're making a career change, make sure you're clear on what is that level that you want to be looking at, because that's something a lot of women sort of don't pay attention to. And something along the lines of, I have something along the lines of growth and delivery, but whatever aligns to your objectives is what you're looking for here. The next element is to look at the role or the work. And what I mean by that is, what is that your current role and what it should be to align to your objective, because that paves the path to attain that 2-year objective that you've now written down. It verbalizes what exposure, what experience, what level of sort of work that you need to do to ensure you're aligned or working towards that objective and going forward and getting that next promotion or that next level or the next level of change that you're looking for, and identify gaps where you can start building and working towards. When you write that down, think about your current role, perhaps the next role, but not anything further, because what you're doing here is looking at where you are right now. It helps you figure out what would be the ideal role, which will keep you working towards where you want to go, versus a future role. And you want to think about what your experience needs to be strategically and tactically. What should you be doing to get the experience? But what is a strategic experience that you need, a leadership experience that you need as well? If your current role, think about the ideal. If you had a role on the director of product operations, and this is what an ideal role would look like, this is the level of influence and impact I would like it to have, even if that's not the case right now, because again, it'll help you determine where are the gaps. When you create a product, you're not going to create it for the whole world, right? You create it for a small segment of the market, because it helps you then focus on the right personas and maximize your return on investment. Your career should be no different. You need to be clear on what segment you're focusing on, because not all companies or employers can give you the exposure and the role and the sort of career path that you need. You need to narrow your field of search and focus on the market that you're operating in, because it'll help you then determine market fit, work towards it, and articulate why you're the right fit for, and you have all the skills to bring to the table. So how might you look at that? There are a few dimensions that I have put down, or at least I like to look at. The first one is your employer profile. What are you thinking about in terms of industry, if it is relevant? Size of the company, is that relevant? What about the stage of the company? How does that work towards where you will get the right level of exposure? Location, flexibility, do they matter? Start writing those down about that. Those would create an employer persona, if you will, but also write down what are the must-haves and the good-to-haves. What are the non-negotiables there? So when you do approach an opportunity, you're making sure that you're aligning towards it, right? The next step to think about is, what is the value proposition you bring to the table? What are your strengths? Why are you aligned to that role and that employer segment? Write that down. And who are your competitors? This is important. If you're looking for a career change, and this is not just when you're looking for a career change, but if you take that example, if you're moving from an engineering role, you were an engineer and you now want to go into product management, your competitors are going to be product managers who have had lots of product management experience. So how might you approach that? What are your unique selling points as compared to your competitors? Perhaps it is the fact that you have an engineering background and you can have a more in-depth conversation with engineers while also working with the business. Write those down, because that will then help you articulate what is the value that you bring to the table across all of these dimensions for an employer with that particular persona. Looking at these sort of dimensions helps give a framework to evaluate what your outcomes are that you're aiming for, how you measure it, and evaluate anything that comes along to what you're looking for. And most importantly, don't just think about them. Write them down and have a look at that periodically, because they might change here and there, and you want to make sure that you're keeping that at the back of your mind. Now that you have a framework to start with, baseline. Where are you today? We had values out there, key results. We had your role and your market segment alignment. How are the alignments there? Are they good? Are they bad? Are they okay? How serious are they? Do you need to sort of address the gaps right away? Are some of those just something you want to keep watching so they don't get too bad? Figure out where you are today, because that will then set the stage for what do you need to do to increase the alignment. So once you have baseline, I mean, generally speaking, for any role, you need to invest in yourself. You need to keep adding to your tool set, right? It's like those video games where you're walking around collecting little mushrooms and little power-ups here and there. And when you have that big cliff that you need to jump over, you use one of your power-ups to get over that obstacle, right? This shouldn't be any different. You need to keep working on collecting those sort of tools that you can use when that right opportunity comes along. And what those are kind of depends on the industry you're in, your own objectives, and so forth. But I do want to talk about a few sort of tools that you could use. Let me start with coaching. I think it was about two and a half years ago, one of my dear friends made this comment to me. And I didn't know much about leadership coaching until then. I didn't even know what it was. And she made this comment and she said, did you know most leaders, especially VP and above, they all have coaches, and they help them sort of navigate all of the challenges that they face. And a lot of time it's even sponsored by the organization. I went, huh. And it made me think and research what leadership coaching was. And it was such an eye-opener. I ended up looking and speaking to a lot of leadership coaches, and sort of identifying someone who would be a right fit. I now work with a coach. Her name is Sarah Perugia. She's based in the UK as well. I've been working with her for 7 months now, and it has been very, very rewarding. And something I want you all to think about, at least. A coach can support you, guide you, and challenge you through your situation. They can give you that safe space to verbalize and articulate your thoughts and strategies of what you might want to do and where you might want to take your career, and help you on that front. They might also be able to help you around areas like personal branding, influencing, fostering collaboration, working with different types of people, and sort of knowing what style of communication to use, impact, and so forth. There's so many things they can sort of help you with. It's extremely valuable, and especially for those, if you're in a mid to senior role, and if you would like to move or moving towards a leadership role, this can be huge. So if you are like me and haven't heard of it and haven't tried it, definitely give it a thought. Well, one-to-one coaching is always an option. It can be expensive, but that's not the only way to get coaching. There are a lot of blogs and a lot of podcasts which will get you started to get a sense for how coaching can help you. One of my favorite is HBR's Coaching Real Leaders podcast. I mean, every time I listen to Muriel Wilkins speak to someone, I go, I've been there. I know exactly what they're talking about. And it's been so helpful just listening to that podcast. So give that a go. That's a good start to get a sense for what coaching is all about. Some coaches might do group coaching program. Sarah, who I work with, does this program called Women on a Mission, which is sort of a small cohort program where they have a 6-month program where they meet about 3 to 4 hours each month in a small group, and they go through specific areas of development over that 6-month period, which is absolutely amazing and a good sort of cost-effective way to get the same level of coaching, but in a different setting, if you will. And finally, if you are interested, ask your employer if there is enough buy-in and enough interest within your organization. Your employer will be able to set something up quite quickly, and it's more cost-effective for them to set something up. So ask them. When we talk about coaching, mentoring also comes up because they're very similar. They're both sort of focused on getting support, but they're slightly different. And instead of me having to explain all of it, I thought I'll use that little diagram, which is from Pushfar, and they have a little article about what it is. I love that diagram because instantly it tells you exactly what the differences are. And Pushfar, by the way, is an online mentoring platform, which it's a community where mentors and mentees come together and set up mentoring relationships, which is quite interesting. But as the diagram says, mentoring is more on the directive side versus coaching. Coaching is all about guidance and support, while mentoring is also about support. It is more directive, where a mentor can share and leverage their expertise and their experience to help you through specific challenges that you might be facing and give you advice. Can be quite directive, which is great, and has a high level of context match. What I mean by that is it could be very related to the work you're doing or your situation and so forth, which is why because it is so sort of specific, you might look at multiple mentors because you might have different focuses where you need help and advice on. And mentoring tends to be a little less formal as well. But it can be quite valuable. I mentioned coaching can be quite valuable for people who are in that mid to senior level to move up the ladder in the leadership space. Mentoring can be especially valuable for those in the early stages of your career. If you are a junior engineer, work with a senior engineer or a staff engineer to sort of to create that mentor-mentee relationship, because it can be a huge help to move forward. But of course, senior folks in the senior levels of their career can equally get value from them. So when you're thinking about, a lot of times, the mentors, you wouldn't even know that you have a mentor sometimes, because think about who you go to advise on a particular type of sort of situation or a challenge that you face. You might be able to just come up with a list to say, oh, if I have a leadership challenge, I go to X or Y. And you might just be able to write, because it is so informal, sometimes you don't even know that you have a mentor. And it can be anyone. It can be someone in your family, someone someone at your work, someone you met at a networking event. And as I said, as you go through your career, you will sort of have different mentor relationship, because it changes with your context. But if you're struggling to find someone for a particular area, if you're struggling to find a mentor, again, speak to your employer, because again, more than coaching, setting up a mentoring program within the organization is much more easier. And again, if there is enough buy-in, an employer might be able to support you to create those mentoring programs within your work as well. This one is one of my favorites, and I cannot impress upon you anymore how important speaking engagements can be. Speaking engagements enable you to concisely articulate your thoughts and help you tell a story, identify how you change a message to the right audience, and increases your confidence when you have to present. And it's skill that you need when you move on to leadership roles, because you would have to present in front of a team, in front of a company. And this sets you up for that. And it improves your reach, improves your marketability. And more importantly, when you see someone like you speaking, it encourages others to speak and sort of come forward as well. So it not only helps you, it helps the community as well. So please, please, please think about sort of doing more speaking engagement. And I think there is a panel today around the role of public speaking in the career path. I'm super excited for it, because I'm so passionate about it. I do think it is a great skill set to have under your belt. Speaking sounds daunting. Public speaking sounds daunting to most folks. But it doesn't have to be. You can start small. You can always give a 15-minute talk to your team that you work with about something you did. So for example, you might have set up some monitoring on Datadog to monitor some services. You can surely talk about that for 15 minutes to your team. It's the team that you work with. They're that friendly faces, and they're there to support you. Start there. Start very small, and slowly, as you gain confidence, stretch that to smaller groups and small meetups. Lightning talks are amazing. They're small 15-minute talks. If you want to just test out how you do in front of an unknown audience, start with a lightning talk, but start small and slowly expand your horizons there. And choose a topic that you're comfortable with, because that makes it all the more easy. And it makes it all you have to then focus on is, how do you tell that story, and how do you tell your story? A lot of conferences will help you create CFPs as well. So use that help. Don't be afraid to ask for help. And most meetups and conferences will be ready to help you. So they have lots of resources that you can tap into. Give it a go. And this is another one which doesn't get mentioned a lot. I heard a talk about 4 or 5 years ago um, about the role of boards in help you through your career ladder, and it changed my life. Boards, this is especially useful if you're in that mid to senior level and moving into a leader, you have leadership aspirations, or you're on the path to leadership, because a board gives you exposure to areas that you won't normally in your role. You might be an engineering manager, but on a board, you'll be exposed to conversations around finance, HR, legal. There are so many other aspects of the business you would be exposed to. It's a great learning opportunity. And of course, you can contribute with your skills to that board as well. And it helps give you exposure to executive level conversations that happen at the board, because the conversations are very similar that happen in your company as well. And then it helps you build that skill, improves your marketability for roles internally and externally. So give that a thought. For me, when I think about, initially, when I used to think about a board, I used to just think about for-profit board, which are paid positions, you need a lot of experience and all that. But that's not the only boards that you have access to. Think about charities, think about local organizations, think about schools. They all need a board of directors helping, guiding, supporting, and providing governance. Those are great places to start. I am in the UK, and we have a few organizations here in UK which help others prepare to join boards and help them with training and so forth. A lot of them free, or not so expensive. Women on Board has been super. It has been a big learning experience for me through Women on Boards within UK, and they have an Australia version as well. And there are sites around governors for schools in UK. So that's again helps prepare people to join boards within schools. Governors for Boards is absolutely free in the UK, and there are other organizations as well. So find out what you have in the country that you're in, to see if that is an option, and how do you get started on that front. And remember, it's never too soon to look for a board role. Boards are always looking for diversity and fresh ideas, so you absolutely can contribute. The only thing to remember is board roles come with accountabilities and liabilities. So research what that means within your country. And that's why organizations like these will help ensure that you're prepared and you understand and ready to move on to that level. But it's again, something that will increase your marketability and increase your leadership skills quite a lot. We've talked about how we can sort of determine what our outcomes are that we're trying to focus on, baselining, investing. You always need to close the feedback loop to always evaluate how you're doing right now and what might you do, what actions do you need. Things to consider are, where are your gaps? At the values level, maybe at a market segment level, maybe in terms of some of those key metrics. How are they tracking? Can they be improved? Are they in an okay zone, or are they in a zone where they definitely need improvement? Where are your alignment issues? Is the misalignment a deal breaker? And then think about how might you address them in your current role. Do you have the support to address them in your current role? Do you need to move to a different role to be able to align to the objectives that you have laid out to yourself? Do you need to go to a different department? And do you have the support for that? And if you do decide that I don't think that's going to happen where I am and I need to look outside, you have the tools to now evaluate what you're looking for with that clear vision of where you want to go and what you're looking for. So use that. I think that's sort of the key sort of message that I was aiming for today. I always do this final slide of, here's that one slider of everything that I spoke about. So that's there. I'll leave you with these parting words that quitting is absolutely an option and you should always think about it, but it also needs investment. So you can quit on your own terms. And when you do, it's intentional and it moves you forward. With that, thank you so much. And it was an absolute pleasure talking to you all. And I look forward to the questions. Tasktop is hiring. If you are looking for another role, we have quite a lot of engineering roles out there. And if you don't find something that is a perfect match or even a match for what you are looking for within your career, feel free to reach out to us all the same. We might have something in the future. With that, thank you so much.
That talk was absolutely amazing. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
I saw a lot of really good questions coming in through the chat. The first one was, could you describe the Monday morning test in a bit more detail or give an example?
Okay, that's my favorite. So here's what I think of. For me, no matter how busy or how stressful my work is, if I feel like I don't wake up on a Monday ready to go, I think something is wrong. But of course, you're going to have one of those on the odd Mondays or on the odd occasion, right? So what I look for is, am I generally okay, ready to go on a Monday, at least 3 Mondays a month for 3 months? I'm leaving enough sort of buffer to say you're going to have the odd bad weeks, right? But if you're consistently going, I hate my Mondays, then think about what's going on, because it gives you an indicator of maybe something's going on there. Let's think about it. That's my Monday morning test. That's how I see it.
Awesome. Thank you. The next question was, could you talk about how to identify a real coach?
Yeah. We've stopped sharing, haven't we?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So here's how I went about. I think it's an interesting journey. I spoke to a few coaches. A lot of coaches will give you sort of a free tester session. They'll have an initial session with you. They'll talk to you, evaluate what you're looking for. Some of them give you a questionnaire so you can sort of help articulate what you're looking for in the relationship and so forth. So I went through that. I didn't know what to expect. So it was a bit of a learning journey. I spoke to a few. And the reason I landed with Sarah more than anything else was she gave me the space to think and be sure that I really wanted to go forward. And there was a bit of a value match there between me and her. And that sort of gave me a sense for, okay, I think I'm feeling good about this. But having said that, what we then did was we did one session for like one topic with her to make sure that this is working. And then we signed up for one sort of program where we went, okay, none of us needs to continue if this is not working after that one program of 6 sessions. Let's see how that goes. So giving that opportunity to correct helps a lot. And the fact that she was so open to it, I think that basically worked for me, because it just worked between us. So there is a bit of a chemistry element to it, because you need to be able to talk to someone and feel supported. So it is a bit of a journey. So it is possible when you're identifying, I'm sure that you might go through one or two and go, doesn't quite feel right. Trust your instincts, because there's a bit of that feelings match as well when you speak to a coach.
Awesome.
That was my journey, at least.
That's amazing advice. And another question we had was, someone read an article about who is talking for you when you're not in the room, and their company is global and all remote, and they're wondering how to foster that kind of relationship in a remote environment. Yeah,
so that's the whole idea of sponsorship, isn't it? So it's a bit different from mentoring is separate versus sponsorship, who is sort of talking you up and they're providing that mentoring relationship, but also giving you the opportunities to move forward. So that's interesting. And I have had interesting experience, and maybe I should just talk about it separately in a different talk, because I could go on forever. And I work 100% remote. So trying to find someone who can sponsor you for that role that you're looking for was a journey for me, and it did not work a couple of times, and it worked the third time. So I think it's challenging, the way I would put it. At least if you're looking for a sponsor, keep trying. Make a list of who do you think would be able to talk for you to get that next role, and sort of have small conversations to get started to figure out if they're interested in sponsoring you as well. How can you both, because sponsoring is a two-way street, you want to be, they're using their sort of their network to provide an opportunity for you. So you need to be able to sort of support them in a way that's meaningful to them as well. So you need to find where that balance is and figure out. It is quite challenging. But I guess you have to start with who do you think is going to help you, and start speaking to them about your aspirations. Perhaps I would say that's the first step.
Awesome. And the last question is, what are you reading right now? Any good books?
I have been working on a few fiction at the moment, because I wanted to take a step back. But I have two books that is still sort of on my radar to read. What was the name of that one? Which I absolutely want to read, and hopefully that will be my Christmas read. Unapologetically, I need to remember that one. I will tell you what that is. That's on my list. I received the copy yesterday. So yes, unapologetically confident. No, I'll find that one for you. I'm bad at remembering names, but I will find that for you. I have been looking forward to reading that one for a long time. Sounds
amazing. I think we are at time.
Unapologetically ambitious.
Awesome.
It came to me. It's in the other room. Otherwise, I would have looked for it.
I definitely will check that out. So thank you again for your talk. It was absolutely amazing, super useful. I see chat also loved it.
I'm glad.
And yeah, I just want to thank you for your talk, and to let everybody else know to check out the expo, to check out the upcoming talks. I know there's some about AI, artificial intelligence, I think would be pretty interesting. And yeah, that's it for the talk. It was amazing.
Enjoy the rest of the conference. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you all.
Thank you.